Maria Santos wiped down the counter for the third time that morning. It wasn't dirty anymore, but her hands needed to stay busy. That's how she'd always been. 5 in the morning, and she was already at Desert Rose Diner, the small restaurant on the edge of Rapid City where she'd worked for 15 years. 15 years. Sometimes it felt like a lifetime. Sometimes it felt like yesterday when she first walked through those doors. Nervous and unsure, her English still shaky, her hands trembling as she chopped onions for the first time in an American kitchen. Now she could do it all with her eyes closed. The sound of eggs cracking, the sizzle of bacon on the griddle, the smell of fresh coffee brewing. This kitchen was hers. Not officially, of course. The owner's name was on the papers. But everyone who worked there knew the truth. Maria was the heart of this place. She moved through the morning prep like a dancer who'd practiced the same routine 1,000 times. Her hands worked on their own. Dice the potatoes. Season the meat. Check the soup stock. Mix the pancake batter. Every movement had purpose. Every dish had her signature touch. The other cooks would arrive around 6:30. The waitresses at 7. But Maria always came early. She liked the quiet. Just her in the kitchen having their morning conversation. The hum of the refrigerator. The tick of the old wall clock. The gurgle of the coffee maker. These sounds were her meditation. Her daughter Rosa used to complain about it. "Mama, why do you go so early? They don't pay you extra for that time." And she was right. They didn't. But Maria couldn't explain it in a way that made sense to a 17-year-old. This wasn't about money. This was about pride. About ownership. About making something beautiful with your own 2 hands. Rosa was still sleeping when Maria left their small apartment each morning. A tiny 2-bedroom place on the south side of town. The walls were thin. The heater barely worked in winter. But it was theirs. And every month, Maria made sure the rent was paid on time. She also sent money home to Guatemala, to her mother and younger sister who still lived in the village where she grew up. People at the diner loved Maria, not just the staff. The customers, too. They'd come in and ask for her specifically. "Is Maria cooking today?" They'd want to know. Because they could taste the difference. When she made the chile verde, it wasn't just food. It was a memory of home. When she baked the apple pie, it wasn't just dessert. It was comfort in a crust. She remembered everything. Old Mr. Peterson liked his eggs over easy with extra pepper. The construction crew that came in at 6:30 every Tuesday wanted their coffee ready before they even sat down. The young mother with twins always needed her pancakes cut up into small pieces because she'd be feeding 2 babies while trying to eat herself. Maria made sure everything was ready, made sure everyone felt cared for. "You're too nice," her coworker Linda would say, shaking her head. "These people would forget you tomorrow if you stopped working here." But Maria didn't believe that. She couldn't afford to believe that. Because if cooking was just a job, just a way to make money, then what was she doing with her life? No, it had to mean more than that. It had to matter. There was one regular who never paid. His name was Tommy, and he'd been homeless for as long as anyone could remember. Every morning he'd sit by the back door, and every morning Maria would bring him breakfast. A full plate. Eggs, toast, hash browns, sometimes bacon if there was extra. The owner didn't know. Or maybe he did and pretended not to see. Either way, Maria kept feeding Tommy. "God sees everything," her grandmother used to say back in Guatemala. "When you feed the hungry, you feed God himself." Maria wasn't sure about all that. She went to church on Sundays, said her prayers, but she wasn't the most religious person. She just knew that Tommy was hungry and she had food, and that was enough reason. The kitchen at Desert Rose wasn't fancy. The equipment was old. The dishwasher broke down twice a month. The ventilation system made a weird rattling noise that nobody could fix. But Maria had learned to work with all of it. She knew which burner ran too hot, which oven took longer to preheat, which knife was the sharpest. This kitchen had quirks, like an old friend you'd known forever. She dreamed sometimes about having her own place. A real restaurant where she could design the menu herself, where she could cook the food from her childhood. Pepian and jocan and those little sweet plantain cakes her mother used to make for special occasions. But dreams cost money, and money was something Maria never had extra of. Every dollar was already spoken for. Rent, bills, Rosa's school supplies. Money for Guatemala, the emergency fund that never quite seemed to grow. Rosa was a good student, smart. She wanted to go to college, maybe study business or teaching. Maria would make that happen somehow. She'd work double shifts if she had to, triple shifts, whatever it took. Because that's what mothers do. They sacrifice. They push through. They make it work. The other cooks respected Maria, but they didn't really understand her. They saw a woman who worked too hard for too little money, who came in early and stayed late, who cared too much about a job that would replace her the second she couldn't perform anymore. They weren't wrong to think that way. Maria knew the world was cold. She knew nobody was guaranteed anything, but she also knew this. When you cook for someone, when you put your heart into feeding them, you're doing something ancient and important. You're keeping people alive. You're bringing them together. You're saying without words, I care that you exist. I care that you're hungry. I care that you have another day ahead of you. That's why she cleaned the counters so carefully. Why she tasted every sauce. Why she made sure the presentation was perfect even for the simplest breakfast. Because it mattered. Because she mattered. Because the people eating her food mattered. The sun was starting to come up now, painting the sky outside the kitchen window in shades of pink and orange. Maria paused for just a moment to watch it. Beautiful, another day beginning, another chance to do what she loved. She thought about her hands as she went back to work. These hands had changed so much over the years. They used to be soft back when she was young in Guatemala. Now they were rough, scarred from burns and cuts marked by years of hard work. But they were strong, capable. These hands had fed thousands of people. These hands had earned every dollar that kept her daughter safe and fed. These hands were her most valuable possession. Maria had no idea as she started loading the oven with breakfast casseroles that in just a few weeks, those precious hands would be broken. She had no idea that her whole world was about to shatter along with the bones in her right hand. She had no idea that the worst night of her life was coming. But for now, in this quiet morning moment, everything was perfect. The kitchen was warm. The food smelled amazing. She had work to do and the strength to do it. Maria Santos was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. If only it could have stayed that way forever. November in South Dakota brought cold that cut right through your coat. Maria didn't mind, though. She'd grown up in warm weather, but after 15 years in Rapid City, she'd gotten used to the chill. Tonight was different, though. Tonight the cold felt heavier somehow, like a warning she didn't know how to read. It was a Tuesday. The diner closed at 9 on weekdays. Most of the staff left by 9:30, but Maria always stayed to finish the deep cleaning. The owner trusted her with the keys. She'd lock up, set the alarm, and head home. It was routine. She'd done it hundreds of times. Linda had offered to stay and help. "You sure you don't want company?" she'd asked, pulling on her jacket. "It's pretty dark out there tonight." Maria had waved her off. "I'm fine. Go home to your family. I'll be done in 20 minutes, she'd smiled, tired but content. 20 minutes of mopping and wiping down surfaces, then home to Rosa. The kitchen felt bigger when everyone else was gone. The lights seemed dimmer. The sounds echoed differently. Maria worked quickly, her hands moving through the familiar motions. Wrap the leftover food, put away the clean dishes, wipe down the prep stations, take out the trash. The trash. That's what did it. If she hadn't needed to take out the trash, everything would have been different. She pushed open the back door with her hip, carrying 2 heavy bags. The alley behind the diner was narrow and poorly lit. The dumpster sat about 20 feet from the door. Cold air hit her face. She could see her breath in little clouds. She didn't hear them coming. That's what scared her most when she thought about it later. No footsteps. No warning. Just suddenly 2 figures stepping out from behind the dumpster. 2 men wearing dark hoodies pulled low over their faces. "Don't scream," one of them said. His voice was young, maybe 20s. "We don't want to hurt you. We just need money." Maria's heart exploded in her chest. The trash bags fell from her hands. She couldn't breathe right, couldn't think. Her mind went completely blank with fear. "I don't have money," she managed to say. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. High and thin, "I'm just the cook. I don't have access to anything." "The safe," the other one said. He was taller, broader. "Take us to the safe, now." Maria's legs felt like water. She thought about running, thought about screaming, but they were blocking her path and her voice had disappeared into the cold night air. So she nodded, turned back toward the door. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the handle. Inside, the warm kitchen felt surreal. Just minutes ago, everything had been normal. Now these strangers were in her space, her sanctuary, the place where she felt safest in the whole world. The office, the tall one said, pushing her forward. Not hard, but firm enough that she stumbled. The office was tiny. Just a desk, a filing cabinet, and the safe mounted on the wall behind the door. Maria stood there staring at it. The safe she'd walked past every single day for 15 years. The safe she'd never once opened. "I don't know the combination," she said. "Only the owner knows it, I swear." "I'm telling the truth. Don't lie to us." The younger one's voice got harder, angrier. "I'm not lying." Maria's own voice rose. "Call him. Call the owner. I can give you his number. He can tell you." "I don't have the combination." They looked at each other. She could feel their frustration, could feel the situation getting worse. Her mind raced. What were they going to do? What was going to happen? "Check the register," the tall one said. "Get whatever's there," the younger one left. Maria could hear him in the front, the sound of the cash register being forced open. The tall one stayed with her, blocking the doorway. They stood in awful silence. Maria's heart was beating so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. $80, the young one shouted from the front. "That's it? $80? She heard him coming back, heard the anger in his footsteps. When he appeared in the doorway, his whole body was tense with rage. "Where's the rest?" he demanded. "There's got to be more than $80. "Tuesday is slow," Maria whispered. "The owner takes the deposits on Wednesdays. There's never much left on Tuesday nights. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" He laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was bitter, mean. "You're sorry?" What happened next happened so fast that Maria's brain couldn't process it all at once. He grabbed her right hand. Her cooking hand. Her precious, important, necessary hand. He grabbed it and slammed it down on the desk. "Tell us the combination." "I don't know it," Maria screamed. "I don't know it." He lifted her hand and slammed it down again, this time against the edge of the filing cabinet. Metal against bone. She heard something crack. Felt pain so sharp and bright it erased everything else in the world. She screamed. Really screamed. The kind of scream that tears your throat. And he did it again and again, smashing her hand against the cabinet while she begged and cried and tried to pull away. "Stop it," the tall one finally said. "Stop, she doesn't know. Let's just go." They dropped her. She fell to the floor, cradling her hand against her chest. Through her tears, she saw them run, heard the back door slam, heard their footsteps disappearing into the night. Then silence. Just Maria on the floor of the office, sobbing, her hand screaming with pain. She looked down at it. It didn't look right. The fingers were bent at wrong angles. Already swelling. Already turning dark colors. She needed to call someone. Needed help. But her phone was in her jacket pocket and her jacket was hanging in the kitchen. She had to move. Had to get up. Every movement sent fresh waves of agony through her arm. She made it to the kitchen. Found her phone. Her left hand was shaking so badly she could barely dial. She called Rosa first. Had to let her know. Had to tell her not to worry even though everything was wrong. "Mama?" Rosa's voice was sleepy, confused. "Why are you calling? Are you okay?" "I'm okay," Maria lied. "I'm okay, baby. But I need you to listen. Something happened at the diner. I'm going to the hospital, but I'm okay. Do you hear me? I'm okay. What happened? Mama, what's wrong? I'll call you from the hospital. Stay home, lock the door. I love you." Then she called the police. Then an ambulance. Then she sat on the floor of her kitchen, her ruined hand in her lap, and cried, not just from pain. From fear, from violation, from the terrible knowledge that everything had changed. This kitchen where she'd felt so safe. Where she'd spent 15 years building something. It had been invaded, poisoned, and her hand, her precious hand that did everything. That fed people. That made art from ingredients. That provided for her daughter. Gone. She could feel it was gone. "I have to cook," she whispered to the empty kitchen. Blood was dripping onto the floor. Her vision was getting blurry. But all she could think about was work. About tomorrow's breakfast shift. About the people who would be waiting for their food. "I have to cook. I have to." The ambulance came. The paramedics were kind. They wrapped her hand carefully, gave her something for the pain. As they loaded her onto the stretcher, Maria looked back at her kitchen one last time. She didn't know it then, but it would be months before she could stand in a kitchen again without shaking. Months before the smell of food would bring comfort instead of fear. Months before she could think about that night without feeling like she was drowning. The ambulance doors closed. The siren started, and Maria Santos, the best cook at Desert Rose Diner, left her kingdom behind, not knowing if she'd ever truly return to it. The emergency room at Rapid City Regional Hospital was bright. Too bright. Maria sat in a plastic chair, her hand elevated and wrapped in temporary bandages, trying not to look at it. Every time she looked, panic rose in her throat like water. Rosa had arrived 20 minutes after Maria. She'd taken a cab, spent money they couldn't afford to spend, and now sat pressed against her mother's side, crying quietly. Maria wanted to comfort her, but she had no comfort to give. She was empty. The doctor was young, efficient. He'd taken x-rays and now stood in front of Maria with a tablet showing her pictures of her own bones, except they didn't look like bones anymore. They looked like puzzle pieces scattered across a table. Multiple fractures, he said, pointing at the screen. Here, and here. The metacarpal bones in your hand, some of the smaller bones in your fingers. There's also significant soft tissue damage. What does that mean? Rosa asked. Maria couldn't speak. It means we need to schedule surgery. We'll need to put in pins, maybe a plate, to hold everything together while it heals. And even after surgery, there's going to be extensive physical therapy. Months of it. Will she be able to use her hand? Rosa's voice cracked. Will it work again? The doctor hesitated. That hesitation told Maria everything she needed to know. We'll do our best, he said carefully. But injuries like this with this much damage, it's hard to predict. She'll regain some function, certainly, but whether she'll have full strength and flexibility, that's unclear. Maria finally found her voice. I'm a cook. I need my hands to work. I need to go back to my job. The doctor's face softened with sympathy. I understand. But you need to be realistic about the recovery time. You're looking at surgery next week, then 6 to 8 weeks in a cast. Then months of physical therapy. Even in the best-case scenario, you won't be cooking for at least 3 months. Maybe longer, 3 months. The words hit Maria like a physical blow. 3 months without work. 3 months without income. How would they survive? The rent was due in 2 weeks. Rosa needed new shoes. The bills were already piling up. And now there would be medical bills. Mountains of them. Do you have insurance? The doctor asked gently. Maria nodded. The diner provided basic insurance. But she knew how insurance worked. There would be deductibles, co-pays, things they didn't cover. She was already doing the math in her head, watching her small savings account evaporate. After the doctor left, a nurse came to give Maria pain medication and schedule her surgery. Then a police officer arrived to take her statement. Maria told the story in a flat voice, like it had happened to someone else. The officer was kind, but not optimistic. These kinds of robberies, they're hard to solve, he admitted, especially if they were wearing masks. But we'll do what we can. When everyone finally left them alone, Rosa put her head on Maria's shoulder. Mama, what are we going to do? Maria didn't have an answer. She sat there in the too bright waiting room, surrounded by other people's emergencies, and felt more lost than she'd ever felt in her life. More lost than when she'd first come to America, not speaking the language, not knowing anyone. At least then she'd had hope. Right now she had nothing but fear. Ms. Santos? Maria looked up. An older man stood a few feet away. He had long silver hair pulled back in a braid and skin the color of weathered copper. He wore jeans and a denim jacket decorated with beautiful beadwork. His eyes were dark and kind. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said. My name is Joseph Whitebird. I couldn't help but overhear some of what the doctor told you. Maria stiffened. She didn't want sympathy from strangers. Didn't want pity. I'm fine, she said automatically. Joseph smiled slightly. No, you're not. And that's okay. Nobody would be fine after what you've been through. He gestured to an empty chair nearby. May I sit for a moment? Maria was too tired to say no. Joseph sat down, leaving respectful space between them. He didn't stare at her bandaged hand. Didn't ask invasive questions. Just sat quietly for a moment. I work with the Indian Health Service, he said eventually. I was here visiting a friend who had surgery. I'm actually a traditional healer. Been doing it for almost 40 years now. Rosa perked up slightly. Like a medicine man? Something like that, Joseph said, smiling at her. I learned from my grandmother. She learned from her grandmother. Old ways of healing that have been passed down for generations. Maria felt a flicker of irritation. I'm Catholic. I go to Sacred Heart Church. I'm not trying to convert you, Joseph said calmly. I'm just offering help. See, Western medicine is very good at fixing broken bones. Those doctors will put your hand back together. But there's another kind of healing that needs to happen too. Healing from trauma, from fear, from feeling violated in a place where you felt safe. Maria's eyes filled with tears. How did this stranger know exactly what she was feeling? Your hand will heal, Joseph continued. But you need to heal too. Your spirit, your sense of safety. The Western doctors won't address that, but I can help with it. If you want. How? Maria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Traditional medicine, prayer, ceremony, ways of releasing trauma and finding peace again. I work with the reservation community, but I help anyone who needs it. I've seen people recover from terrible things, not just physically, but in here. He touched his chest over his heart. Maria wanted to dismiss him. This was crazy. She didn't believe in magic or spirits or any of that. She believed in hard work and practicality and paying your bills on time. But something in Joseph's eyes made her pause. He wasn't selling anything. Wasn't pushing. Just offering. I can't pay you, she said. I don't have money. I'm not asking for money. I'm offering help. There's a difference. Joseph pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket and wrote something on it with a pen from the hospital reception desk. This is my address. On the reservation. When you're ready, if you're ready, come see me. Bring your daughter. I'll make you tea. We'll talk, and if you decide it's not for you, that's fine too. He handed her the paper. Maria took it with her good hand, staring at the address written in neat handwriting. Why would you help me? She asked. You don't even know me. Joseph stood up, preparing to leave. My grandmother used to say that we're all connected. When one person suffers, we all suffer. When one person heals, we all heal. Besides, he added with a gentle smile, I know enough. I know you're a mother who's scared for her daughter. I know you're a worker who's lost their livelihood. I know you're a person in pain. That's all I need to know. He nodded to both of them. Take care of that hand. Follow the doctor's orders. Get the surgery. Do the physical therapy. But when you're ready to work on the other kind of healing, I'll be there. Then he was gone, disappearing into the busy emergency room like he'd never been there at all. Rosa picked up the paper from Maria's lap. Are you going to go? Maria didn't answer. She didn't know. Part of her thought the whole thing was ridiculous, but another part, a part she didn't want to examine too closely, felt something she hadn't felt since before the attack. Hope. Just a small spark of it, but it was there. Maybe, she finally said. Maybe. They sat together in the waiting room for another hour, dealing with paperwork and scheduling the surgery. The whole time, Maria kept that piece of paper folded in her pocket. An address. A possibility. A stranger's kindness in the middle of her worst nightmare. She didn't know yet that Joseph Whitebird would change her life. That he would teach her things about healing and strength that she'd never imagined. That he would help her find purpose in her pain. Right now, all she knew was that someone had seen her suffering and offered to help. In a world that felt cold and cruel and dangerous, that was something. That was enough to hold on to for now. The surgery was scheduled for the following Wednesday. 5 days away, 5 days of living with a hand that throbbed constantly, even with the pain medication. 5 days of trying to do everything left-handed. 5 days of watching Rosa try to hide how scared she was. Maria couldn't cook, couldn't clean properly, couldn't even tie her own shoes. Rosa had to help her shower, help her get dressed, help her with everything. It was humiliating. Maria had spent 17 years taking care of her daughter. Now Rosa was taking care of her, and it felt wrong. Backwards, like the natural order of the universe had been disrupted. The diner called. The owner was sympathetic but practical. Take all the time you need to heal, he said. Your job will be here when you're ready. But Maria heard what he didn't say. The job would be there for a while. But not forever. Eventually, they'd need to replace her. They'd have to. Businesses can't wait months for one employee, no matter how good she was. Linda and some of the other workers had taken up a collection. $300 in cash delivered in an envelope with a card everyone had signed. Get better soon, Mama Maria, we miss you. Maria had cried when she read it. $300 wouldn't cover even a fraction of what she needed. But it was the thought, the love. People cared. That meant something, but $300 didn't pay the rent. Didn't buy groceries. Didn't cover the medical bills that were starting to arrive. Maria lay awake at night doing calculations in her head. Her savings would last maybe 2 months if they were careful. After that, she didn't know. She'd never asked for help before. Never taken charity. The thought of it made her sick. Rosa found her mother crying in the kitchen on the third day. Not cooking, just sitting at the table, staring at her bandaged hand, tears running down her face. "Mama, don't cry," Rosa said, sitting down beside her. "It's going to be okay." "How?" Maria asked. "How is it going to be okay?" "I can't work. I can't pay our bills. What if my hand doesn't heal right? What if I can never cook again? What am I without that? Who am I?" Rosa was quiet for a moment. Then she picked up the piece of paper that had been sitting on the counter for 3 days. The address Joseph Whitebird had written. "Maybe we should go see this man," Rosa said carefully. Maria shook her head. "That's crazy. I don't believe in that stuff. Medicine men and ceremonies, that's not going to fix my hand." "The doctors are going to fix your hand," Rosa pointed out. "But maybe he can help with the other stuff. The being scared part. The not sleeping part. The crying in the kitchen part. You think I'm losing my mind?" "No," Rosa said firmly. "I think you went through something terrible. And I think you need help, real help. Not just surgery and physical therapy. Help with here." She touched her mother's chest, right over her heart, the same gesture Joseph had made in the hospital. Maria looked at her daughter. When had she gotten so wise? When had she stopped being a little girl who needed protection and become someone who could offer comfort? "What if it's weird?" Maria asked. "What if we go out there and it's uncomfortable and strange?" Rosa shrugged. "Then we leave. But what if it helps? What if this man actually knows something that can make you feel better? Isn't it worth trying?" Maria thought about that, about having nothing to lose, about the fear that woke her up at 3 in the morning, about the way her heart raced every time she heard a sudden noise, about the nightmares where she was back in that alley, back in that office, helpless and broken. "Okay," she said quietly, "after the surgery, when I'm feeling a little better, we'll go." Rosa smiled and hugged her mother carefully, mindful of the injured hand. "Good, because honestly, Mama, I'm scared too. And maybe he can help both of us." The surgery went well. That's what the surgeon said afterward. "We got everything aligned properly. The pins are in place. Now it's just a matter of healing time." Maria's hand was wrapped in a heavy cast that went halfway up her forearm. It was white and bulky and felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The pain was worse after surgery. Much worse. They gave her stronger medication, but it made her feel disconnected from reality, like she was floating somewhere above her own life, watching it happen to someone else. She hated that feeling. Hated not being in control. 2 weeks after the surgery, on a Sunday afternoon, Rosa drove them to the reservation. She'd just gotten her license a few months earlier, and Maria was still nervous about her driving, but there was no choice. Maria couldn't drive with one hand in a cast. The drive took about 40 minutes. As they left Rapid City behind, the landscape opened up. Wide spaces, big sky. There was a beauty to it that Maria had never really noticed before. Or maybe she'd been too busy working to pay attention. The reservation was different from the city. Quieter. The houses were more spread out. Some were nice, well-maintained. Others were falling apart. Poverty was visible here in a way it wasn't in town. Maria felt uncomfortable, like an intruder. Like she didn't belong. Joseph's house was small but tidy. The yard was neat. There were gardens with late-season vegetables still growing. And behind the house, Maria could see something that looked like a large tent. A teepee, she realized. An actual teepee. "Are we really doing this?" she asked Rosa. "We're really doing this," Rosa said, turning off the car. Joseph must have heard them pull up because he came out before they could knock. He looked the same as he had in the hospital. "Same kind eyes. Same calm presence, Maria," he said warmly. "I'm glad you came. And you must be Rosa." He shook Rosa's good hand, then held his hand out to Maria. She awkwardly offered her left hand, and he took it gently. "Come in, I just made tea." His house smelled like sage and something else Maria couldn't identify. Something earthy and sweet. The living room was simple. A couch, some chairs, bookshelves full of books, photographs on the walls. Pictures of family, Maria guessed. Children and grandchildren. They sat down and Joseph brought out tea in handmade mugs. It was herbal tea, warm and soothing. Maria sipped it carefully, not sure what to say. "How are you feeling?" Joseph asked. How was the surgery? They said it went well, Maria replied. But it still hurts. A lot. Pain is the body's way of protecting itself, Joseph said. It's telling you to be careful, to give yourself time. But there's different kinds of pain. There's the pain in your hand. And then there's the pain in here. Again, that gesture to the heart. Maria felt tears starting again. She'd been crying so much lately. It was embarrassing. But Joseph didn't seem bothered. He just waited, patient and calm. I'm scared all the time, Maria admitted. I can't sleep. I keep seeing their faces even though I never really saw their faces. I keep feeling it happen again. And I'm angry, so angry. They took everything from me in 10 minutes. My work, my security, my peace. How do I get that back? Joseph nodded slowly. That's what we're going to work on. Not today. Today is just for talking, for you to see that I'm just a regular person, not some mystical figure from a movie. I'm a man who learned some things from his grandmother. Things about plants and prayer and helping people heal from wounds you can't see on an X-ray. He explained his approach, how he used traditional Lakota medicine alongside modern medicine, how he didn't ask people to abandon their doctors or their faith, how he believed all healing came from the same source, just through different paths. I'm Catholic, Maria said again, as if that was a defense. I know. You told me. That's fine. I'm not asking you to stop being Catholic. I'm offering something additional. Something that works with your faith, not against it. Your God, my spirits, the universe, whatever you want to call it, they all want the same thing. For you to be whole again. They talked for over an hour. Rosa asked questions. Joseph answered them patiently, never making them feel stupid for not understanding. He showed them some of the plants he used. Explained how ceremonies worked. Made it all seem normal and natural instead of strange and scary. Would you like to see where I do the healing work? Joseph asked eventually. He led them outside to the teepee. Inside it was beautiful. There was a fire pit in the center, currently unlit. Blankets and cushions arranged around it. Drums and rattles hanging on the walls. The smell of sage was stronger here. This is sacred space, Joseph explained. But sacred doesn't mean separate from regular life. It means intentional, focused, a place where we come to do important work. Maria stood in the center of the teepee, looking up at where the poles met at the top. Light filtered in, creating patterns. For the first time since the attack, she felt something loosen in her chest. Not peace exactly, but something close to it. A sense that maybe, just maybe, healing was possible. Will you come back? Joseph asked as they were leaving. Not for ceremony yet, just to talk more, to get comfortable. Maria looked at Rosa, who nodded encouragingly. Then she looked back at Joseph. This kind old man who was offering her something she couldn't even name. Hope, understanding, a path forward? Yes, she said. We'll come back. Driving home, Rosa was excited. Mama, I really liked him. He seems genuine. Like he really wants to help. Maria was quieter. She was still skeptical. Still unsure. But she'd taken the first step. She'd opened a door she hadn't even known existed. And maybe, just maybe, something good would come through it. 3 weeks after the surgery, Maria returned to Joseph's house. This time alone. Rosa had school, and honestly, Maria thought she needed to do this part by herself. Whatever this was, she still wasn't completely sure what she was doing here. The cast on her hand felt heavier each day. Not physically, but emotionally. Every time she looked at it, she felt the weight of everything she'd lost. Her independence, her income, her sense of safety. The cast was white and people kept signing it, writing encouraging messages. But Maria didn't feel encouraged. She felt trapped. Joseph greeted her at the door like she was an old friend. Come in, come in. I made more tea, and I baked bread this morning. You have to try it. The bread was still warm and it was delicious. Maria found herself eating 2 slices, surprised by her own appetite. She hadn't been eating much lately. Food had lost its appeal, which was strange for someone who'd spent their whole life loving to cook. Before we do anything else, Joseph said, sitting across from her, I want to understand what you're carrying, not just the broken hand, everything else. Tell me about the kitchen. Tell me what it meant to you. So Maria talked, really talked, about growing up in Guatemala in a tiny village where everyone knew everyone, about learning to cook from her mother and grandmother, about the pride she felt when people enjoyed her food, about coming to America and how the kitchen at Desert Rose had become her identity. about feeling powerful when she was cooking, in control, capable. And they took that from you, Joseph said softly. Not just your ability to cook for a while. They took your sacred space. They violated it. It's just a kitchen, Maria said, but her voice cracked. It's just a job. No, Joseph said firmly. It's not. It was your temple, the place where you practiced your art, where you fed people and cared for them and felt like yourself. That's not just a job. That's a calling. And they defiled it, Maria started crying. Again, she was so tired of crying. But Joseph's words had hit something deep inside her. Yes, that's exactly what it felt like. Not just assault, violation, defilement. Her sanctuary had been invaded and poisoned. Joseph let her cry without trying to stop her or comfort her. He just sat there, present and patient. When she finally quieted down, he handed her a tissue and said, "Good, you need to let that out. You've been holding it in, trying to be strong, but strength isn't about not feeling. It's about feeling everything and moving through it." He stood up. "Come on, I want to show you something." He led her to the teepee behind his house. Inside, he'd laid out several plants on a blanket. Some Maria recognized, some she didn't. He explained each one: sage for cleansing, sweetgrass for blessing, cedar for protection, others with names in Lakota that he translated. This one is for calming the mind. This one is for healing wounds. This one is for finding courage. My grandmother taught me about these plants, Joseph said, handling them with reverence. She taught me that everything in nature has a purpose. Everything can heal if you know how to use it. But the plants alone aren't enough. You have to combine them with intention, with prayer, with the belief that healing is possible. I don't know if I believe that, Maria admitted. That's okay. I believe it enough for both of us right now. Your job is just to be open, to try. Can you do that? Maria nodded slowly. Joseph prepared a mixture of herbs and showed her how to make a compress for her hand. Not to heal the bones, he explained. The doctors were doing that. But to help with the pain and swelling. To give her something active to do instead of just waiting helplessly. You feel powerless, he said. That's part of the trauma. They made you powerless, and now you're waiting for doctors to fix you. Waiting for time to pass, waiting for permission to return to your life. This gives you back some power. You're participating in your own healing. It made sense. Maria watched carefully as he showed her the process. She could do this at home, every day, a ritual, a way of caring for herself. Then Joseph asked if she'd like to experience a healing ceremony. A small one just for today. Maria felt nervous but agreed. She'd come this far. Might as well see what it was really about. Joseph lit sage and moved the smoke around Maria with a large feather. He chanted in Lakota, words she didn't understand but that somehow felt ancient and powerful. The smoke smelled clean, purifying. Maria closed her eyes and tried to let herself feel whatever she was supposed to feel. I'm asking the spirits to help carry away your fear, Joseph explained, switching back to English. To take the heaviness from your heart? To protect you as you heal. You don't have to believe in the spirits. Just be present. Just breathe, Maria breathed. Deep breaths, in and out. The smoke swirled around her. Joseph's voice was steady and calming. And something unexpected happened. The tightness in her chest, the constant anxiety that had been her companion for weeks, loosened just a little bit. Not gone, but less. When the ceremony ended, Joseph sat down beside her. How do you feel? Different, Maria said, searching for the right words. Lighter, maybe? I don't know. Is that normal? There's no normal. Everyone experiences this differently. But yes, lighter is good. You've been carrying so much weight, fear, anger, shame. Shame. Maria looked at him sharply. Why would I feel shame? I didn't do anything wrong. No, you didn't, but victims often feel shame anyway. Shame that it happened to them. Shame that they couldn't stop it. Shame that they're struggling now. Shame is poison, Maria. It needs to be released. He was right. Maria did feel shame. Shame that she'd been vulnerable. Shame that she couldn't just push through and get back to work. Shame that she needed help. She hadn't wanted to admit it, but it was there, heavy and toxic. How do I release it? She asked. By acknowledging it first, which you just did. And then by forgiving yourself. You survived something terrible. You're allowed to struggle. You're allowed to need help. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. They talked for another hour. Joseph shared stories from his own life. Times he'd struggled. Times he'd needed healing. He wasn't trying to compare his experiences to hers, just showing her that everyone goes through darkness sometimes, that it's a normal part of being alive. My grandmother used to say that we're all walking wounded, Joseph said. Every single person carries something. The question is whether we let our wounds define us or whether we use them to grow stronger and more compassionate. I don't feel very compassionate right now, Maria admitted. I feel angry. Anger is good. Anger is healthy. It means you know what happened to you was wrong. But if you hold on to it too long, it becomes resentment. And resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Maria had never heard that expression before, but it struck her. She was holding on to so much anger. At the men who hurt her, at the universe for letting it happen, at herself for going out to the trash alone, at her body for not healing faster. The anger was eating her alive. What do I do with it? She asked. The anger. We'll work on that, Joseph said. There are ceremonies for releasing anger, ways of transforming it into something useful, but first you need to feel it fully. Don't push it down. Don't try to be strong and pretend you're fine. Feel everything, then we'll work on letting it go. Before Maria left that day, Joseph gave her homework. He asked her to write down everything she was feeling. Every fear, every anger, every sad thought. Not to show anyone, just to get it out of her head and onto paper. The mind goes in circles, he explained. The same thoughts over and over. Writing them down breaks the cycle, gets them out of you so they're not rattling around inside, making you sick. Maria wasn't sure about that, but she agreed to try. Joseph also gave her a small bundle of sage. Burn this at home, in your kitchen. Reclaim that space. It's yours. Don't let what happened there take it away from you forever. Driving home, Maria felt strange. Not bad, not good exactly. Just different. Something had shifted. She couldn't explain it, wouldn't have known how to describe it to someone else. But the constant terror that had been her companion since the attack had quieted down to a dull roar instead of a scream. That night, after Rosa went to bed, Maria lit the sage Joseph had given her. She stood in her small apartment kitchen and let the smoke fill the space. It smelled different from cooking smells. Cleaner. Sacred, like Joseph had said. This is my kitchen, she whispered to the empty room. Mine, not theirs. They don't get to take this from me. It felt silly, dramatic, but it also felt necessary, like she was drawing a line, claiming territory, saying no to fear. She took out a notebook and started writing. Everything Joseph had told her to write. The fear of never cooking again. The anger at the men who hurt her. The worry about money. The shame of needing help. The grief for the life she'd had before, the simple happiness she'd taken for granted. She wrote for an hour, pages and pages, and when she was done, her hand ached from holding the pen, but her heart felt lighter. Just like Joseph said, getting it out of her head and onto paper made it feel less overwhelming. Made it feel manageable. Maybe this healing thing was real after all. Maybe there was more to recovery than just fixing broken bones. Maybe Joseph knew something the doctors didn't. Maria went to bed that night and slept through the night for the first time since the attack. No nightmares. No waking up in a panic. Just sleep. Deep, restful, healing sleep. The cast came off after 6 weeks. Maria had been counting down the days like a prisoner counting down to freedom. But when the doctor finally removed it, she stared at her hand and wanted to cry. It looked wrong. Thin, weak, the skin was pale and wrinkled. The scars from surgery were bright red and angry looking. This couldn't be her hand. Her strong, capable hand that had done everything. It's going to look better, the doctor assured her. Right now it's just been immobilized for weeks. The physical therapy will help tremendously. You'll build back the strength and flexibility. Physical therapy started the next week. Twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 in the morning. The therapist's name was Chen. She was young and cheerful and seemed to think that enthusiasm could make up for how much the exercises hurt. Squeeze this ball, Chen would say, handing Maria a soft rubber ball. Just try. Don't worry about how hard Maria tried. Her hand barely responded. The ball barely compressed. Frustration burned in her throat. I can't, she said. It's too hard. You can't yet, Chen corrected. But you will. This is just day one. Give yourself time. Time. Everyone kept talking about time. Be patient. Give it time. It takes time. But Maria didn't have time. Her savings were gone. She'd had to borrow money from her cousin in California to make last month's rent. Rosa had gotten a part-time job after school, which made Maria feel even worse. Her daughter should be studying, being a teenager, not working to support her mother. The diner had replaced her. They'd had to. The owner had called and apologized, promised she could come back when she was ready, but they'd hired someone else for her position. Linda said the new cook wasn't nearly as good, but that didn't help Maria pay her bills. She continued visiting Joseph every Sunday after Mass. It became a routine. Church in the morning, then the drive out to the reservation. Rosa came sometimes. Other times Maria went alone. Joseph never charged her money. She tried to give him something, anything, but he always refused. "You'll pay it forward someday," he said. That's how this works. Joseph's treatments continued alongside the physical therapy. While Chen worked on Maria's hand, Joseph worked on her spirit. He taught her meditation techniques to manage the pain, showed her breathing exercises for when panic hit, performed ceremonies to help her release anger and fear. "Your hand is getting better," Joseph observed one Sunday, "but you're still carrying the trauma. I can see it in your eyes." He was right. Maria was sleeping better, but she still jumped at loud noises, still felt her heart race when she was alone in a quiet room, still couldn't bring herself to go back to the diner, even just to visit. The thought of walking into that kitchen made her feel sick. "I feel weak," Maria confessed. "I should be over this by now. It's been 3 months. There's no timeline for healing trauma," Joseph said firmly. "And you're not weak. You're recovering from a serious injury, learning to use your hand again, dealing with financial stress and processing a violent attack. That's a lot. Give yourself credit for still standing." He introduced her to other people who came to him for healing, people who'd survived car accidents and abuse and illness. Hearing their stories made Maria feel less alone. Everyone was walking wounded, just like Joseph's grandmother had said. Everyone was carrying something. One woman, an elder named Dorothy, had survived domestic violence years ago. "I still have days where I flinch when someone moves too fast," she told Maria, 20 years later. "But I've built a good life anyway. The trauma doesn't own me anymore. I carry it, but it doesn't define me." Maria found hope in those words. "The trauma doesn't define me." She repeated it to herself during physical therapy when the pain made her want to quit, during job applications when she had to explain why she'd been unemployed for months, during sleepless nights when fear crept back in. Month 4 brought small victories. Maria could hold a fork properly, could button her own shirts, could grip things with some strength. Chen was pleased with her progress. "You're doing great," she said. "Better than expected, actually. Whatever else you're doing, keep doing it." Maria didn't tell her about Joseph. Didn't mention the ceremonies and herbs and prayers. She wasn't sure Chen would understand. Maria herself didn't fully understand. All she knew was that the combination of both approaches, Western medicine and traditional healing, was working in a way that neither could alone. But month 5 brought setbacks. Maria tried to practice cooking at home, thinking maybe she could start looking for work again. She'd been craving the kitchen, missing it desperately. But when she tried to chop vegetables, her hands started shaking. Not from weakness. From fear. She was back in that office, feeling her hand being slammed down, hearing that terrible cracking sound. The knife clattered to the floor. Maria stood there trembling, tears running down her face. Rosa found her like that. "Mama, what happened?" "I can't do it," Maria sobbed. "I thought I was ready, but I can't. My hand works now, but I'm still broken inside." Rosa hugged her tight. "Call Joseph. He'll know what to do." Joseph came to their apartment that evening. He'd never done that before, but this was an emergency. He found Maria sitting on the couch, staring at nothing, looking defeated. "Tell me what happened," he said gently. Maria explained about trying to cook, about the fear that had overwhelmed her, about realizing that even though her hand was physically healed enough to work, she couldn't do it. The trauma had created a barrier she couldn't cross. "This is normal," Joseph said. "You've been associating cooking with what happened to you. The attack happened at the diner right after you'd been cooking all day. Your brain has connected those two things. We need to break that connection." He had Maria sit in her kitchen. Just sit there. Not cooking. Just being in the space. He burned sage and performed a cleansing ceremony right there in her small apartment kitchen. He talked about reclaiming space, about creating new associations. "This kitchen is not that kitchen," he said. "This is a safe space. Your space. You're in control here. Nothing bad has happened here. You can cook here without fear. Over the next week, Joseph had Maria spend time in her kitchen every day. Not cooking at first, just being there, reading, having tea, sitting, getting comfortable again. Then he had her do simple things. Wash vegetables, stir ingredients, mix things in a bowl. Baby steps Rosa helped too. She'd cook alongside her mother, talking about normal things, making the kitchen feel cheerful and safe again. Slowly, very slowly, Maria started to associate her kitchen with good things again instead of fear. Month 6 was better. Maria could cook simple meals at home. Her hand strength was returning. Not fully. The doctor said she'd probably never have 100% function. But she had maybe 70%. Enough to work. Enough to cook professionally if she wanted to. But did she want to? That was the question Maria couldn't answer. The thought of working in a commercial kitchen again filled her with dread. But what else could she do? Cooking was her only skill. Her only experience. She'd never finished high school, never gone to college. At 42, what other options did she have? You're thinking too small, Joseph said when she shared these worries. You're thinking about going back to what was. But maybe this is a chance to move forward to something new, something better. Like what? I don't know yet. But I know this. You've been given a hard gift. Suffering that taught you things. Showed you depths of strength you didn't know you had. Connected you to healing practices you never would have found otherwise. Those experiences are valuable. They can be used to help others. Maria didn't understand what he meant, not then. But the seed was planted. Month 7 brought unexpected development. Maria had been volunteering at the community center, helping organize donated food, doing simple tasks that didn't require intensive cooking. One day, the director asked if she'd be willing to teach a basic cooking class for people who wanted to learn to make healthy meals on a budget. I don't know if I can, Maria said hesitantly. It's not a commercial kitchen, the director pointed out. It's just the community center kitchen, small groups, relaxed atmosphere, and it would really help people. You're so good at what you do. Maria talked to Joseph about it. Maybe this is the new thing, he suggested. Not cooking to make money for someone else's business. Teaching others, sharing your gift in a different way. The first class was terrifying. 8 people showed up. Maria's hand shook as she demonstrated how to dice an onion properly, but as she talked about food, about flavors, about techniques, she felt something familiar, that sense of purpose, that feeling of using her talents to help people. The class went well. People asked her to do another one. Then another. The community center started paying her a small amount. Not enough to live on, but something, a start. By month 8, Maria was teaching 3 classes a week. Her hand was strong enough. Her fear was manageable. She still had bad days. Days when sounds startled her. Days when memories hit hard. But she also had good days. Days when she felt almost like herself again. Joseph reduced their visits to once a month. You're doing the work now, he said proudly. You don't need me as much anymore. You're healing yourself. But Maria knew that wasn't quite true. She still needed Joseph, still needed his wisdom and ceremonies, still needed the connection to something bigger than herself that his teachings provided. 8 months after the attack, Maria stood in her apartment kitchen preparing a special meal. Not for customers, not for money, for celebration. Joseph and Rosa were coming for dinner, and Maria wanted to cook for them properly. Really cook. The way she used to. Her hand moved over the cutting board. Not as fast as before. Not as smooth. There was a slight tremor sometimes, and she had to rest more frequently. But it worked. She could grip the knife. Could dice vegetables. Could stir pots. Could taste and adjust seasonings. She was cooking again. Rosa arrived first, bursting through the door with excitement. Mama, it smells amazing in here. What are you making? Everything, Maria said, smiling. Pepian like your grandmother makes. Rice with vegetables. Those plantain cakes you love. I'm cooking, Mia. Really cooking. Rosa hugged her mother tight. I'm so proud of you. Joseph arrived with flowers from his garden and a small drum. For you, he said, handing Maria the drum. Sometimes when I work with someone for a long time, helping them heal, I give them something to remember the journey. This drum is made from elk hide. It's been blessed. When you feel afraid or uncertain, you can drum. The rhythm will ground you, connect you back to your strength. Maria ran her fingers over the drum. It was beautiful, simple but powerful. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything. I wouldn't have made it without you." "You would have," Joseph said. "It might have taken longer and the path might have been harder, but you would have made it. You're stronger than you know." They sat down to eat, and Maria watched as they took their first bites, the joy on their faces, the appreciation. This was what she'd missed. This was what made cooking meaningful. Not just feeding people, but connecting with them, sharing love through food. "This is incredible," Rosa said. "I forgot how good your cooking is, Mama. Like I knew it was good, but this is amazing." As they ate, Maria talked about an idea that had been growing in her mind for weeks. "I don't want to go back to restaurant work," she said. "Not like before. I've been thinking about doing something different, something more meaningful." She explained about the cooking classes at the community center, how good it felt to teach people, how many people in their community struggled with food insecurity or didn't know how to cook healthy meals on a budget, how she wanted to do more. "I want to start something," Maria said, her voice getting stronger as she spoke. "Not a restaurant. A place where people can come and eat for free if they need to, where I can teach cooking classes, where food brings people together instead of just being a transaction. I know it sounds crazy. I don't have money. I don't have investors. I barely have rent money, but I can't stop thinking about it." Joseph leaned back in his chair, nodding slowly. "That's vision," he said. "That's what happens when you heal. You start seeing possibilities instead of just problems." "Tell me more." Maria talked for an hour, about wanting to create a community kitchen, about serving free meals to anyone who needed them, about offering cooking classes focused on healing, teaching people to cook as a form of self-care and therapy, about creating a space where trauma survivors could learn new skills and rebuild their confidence. "I've learned so much from you," Maria said to Joseph, about healing being more than just physical, about food being medicine, about community being essential. "I want to combine all of that. Western nutrition knowledge with traditional wisdom. Practical cooking skills with emotional healing." Rosa was bouncing in her seat. "Mama, this is perfect. This is what you should do." "I can help. I can do social media, help with organizing, whatever you need." "But how?" Maria asked, the practical part of her brain kicking in. "I have no money. I can't afford to rent a space. Can't afford equipment. Can't afford to give away free food. It's just a dream." "Dreams start somewhere," Joseph said. "They start with vision, with intention. You put the idea out into the universe and the universe responds. You'd be surprised what can happen when you're clear about your purpose." Over the next few weeks, Maria started taking small steps. She wrote down her vision, created a plan, researched nonprofit organizations and how they worked. It was overwhelming. So much she didn't know, so much that seemed impossible. But then things started happening. Small things at first. The community center director mentioned Maria's idea to someone on the city council. That person knew someone who knew someone. Word spread. Maria was invited to present her idea at a community meeting. She was terrified. Public speaking had never been her thing. She was a cook, not a speaker. But Rosa helped her practice. Joseph performed a ceremony to give her courage. And when the night came, Maria stood in front of 30 people and told her story. She talked about the attack, about her broken hand, about Joseph's healing, about learning that recovery required more than just fixing bones, about wanting to create something that could help others the way she'd been helped. Her voice shook at first, but as she spoke, it grew stronger. When she finished, the room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. People came up afterward with offers. A restaurant owner said he could donate equipment. A real estate agent knew about an empty space that might be available cheap. A retired teacher offered to help with grant writing. A local news reporter wanted to do a story, "See?" Joseph said afterward. "You put it out there. The universe is responding." Within 2 months, things were moving fast. Too fast sometimes. Maria felt overwhelmed by all the decisions, all the paperwork, all the people who wanted to help but also had opinions about how things should be done. But Rosa and Joseph kept her grounded, kept her focused on the vision. They found a space, a small storefront that had been empty for a year. The rent was lower than Maria had feared, and the landlord agreed to reduce it even more because of the community service mission. It needed work. The kitchen was outdated. The dining area was shabby. But Maria could see the potential. The story in the local paper brought more help. Volunteers showed up to paint, to repair, to clean. People donated tables and chairs, kitchen supplies, money. Small amounts mostly, but it added up. Maria couldn't believe how many people cared, how many wanted to be part of something good. Linda from the old diner came by one day. "I heard what you're doing," she said. "It's amazing, and I want to help. I know you can't pay much, but I'd like to volunteer. Cook alongside you. Teach classes. Whatever you need." Maria hugged her, crying again. Good tears this time. "I'd love that. I'd love that so much." The nonprofit paperwork went through. Maria officially became the founder and director of Healing Hands Community Kitchen. It sounded so official, so impressive. She was just Maria, a cook from Guatemala who'd survived something terrible. But apparently that was enough. Joseph helped her design a blessing ceremony for the opening, a way to honor both her Catholic faith and the traditional healing practices that had saved her. The space would be blessed by both a priest from Sacred Heart and by Joseph performing a Lakota ceremony. 2 traditions, 1 purpose, healing. Rosa was in charge of spreading the word. She created social media accounts, posted the story. Within days, hundreds of people were following. People wanted to volunteer, wanted to attend classes, wanted to donate, wanted to be part of something meaningful in their community. One evening, about a week before the opening, Maria stood alone in the kitchen of Healing Hands. Her kitchen now. Hers to run, hers to fill with love and food and healing. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The violence, the pain, the fear, the slow hard work of recovery, the unexpected friendship with an elder healer who'd seen her pain and offered help. She looked at her right hand. Still scarred, still not quite right, but functional. Strong enough. This hand that had been broken and healed. That had learned to work again through determination and help and time. This hand that would now create food not for profit but for purpose. Maria picked up a knife, felt its weight, tested the sharpness. Then she began to chop vegetables. Slowly at first, then with growing confidence. The rhythm came back. The muscle memory. The joy. She was cooking. Really cooking. And not just surviving but thriving. Not just healing but helping others heal. The broken places inside her weren't completely gone. Maybe they never would be. But they'd been transformed into something useful. Something beautiful. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty kitchen. To God, to the universe, to Joseph, to everyone who'd helped her when she couldn't help herself. "Thank you for not letting me give up. Thank you for showing me that broken things can become beautiful." Outside, the sun was setting over Rapid City. Tomorrow she'd come back and continue preparing. There was still so much to do before the opening. But tonight Maria allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Pure, uncomplicated pride in what she'd built. In who she'd become. In the fact that she'd taken her worst experience and turned it into something that would help others. The attack had tried to break her. And it had for a while. But she'd put herself back together, and in the process she'd become someone stronger. Someone with purpose. Someone who understood that our greatest wounds can become our greatest gifts. Maria Santos, the cook with the broken hand that healed, was ready to begin again. Not the life she'd had before. Something better. Something that mattered in ways she'd never imagined. The morning of the opening, Maria woke up before dawn. Old habits. Even after everything that had changed, some things stayed the same. She lay in bed for a moment, listening to Rosa's soft breathing from the other room, and let herself feel the weight of this day. 2 years. It had been exactly 2 years since that terrible November night. 2 years of pain and healing, of breaking down and building back up, of learning that she was stronger than she ever imagined, but also that it was okay to need help. That strength wasn't about doing everything alone. It was about having the courage to accept support when it was offered. Maria got up and made coffee. Strong and black, the way she'd always liked it. She stood at her apartment window watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, 2 men who'd broken her hand were living their lives. Maybe they'd been caught. Maybe they hadn't. She'd stopped checking. Stopped letting them occupy space in her mind. They'd taken enough from her. They didn't get to have her piece too. The opening ceremony was scheduled for 11. People had been arriving since 9 to help set up. By the time Maria and Rosa got to Healing Hands at 9:30, The place was already buzzing with activity. Volunteers arranging chairs, Linda and 2 other former diner workers prepping food in the kitchen. Decorations being hung. Joseph was already there, preparing the space for the blessing ceremony. The walls were covered with photographs. Maria's idea, pictures documenting the journey. Her hand in the cast, the empty storefront before renovation. Joseph's teepee, Rosa studying, volunteers painting. The progression of healing made visible, and in the center a large photograph of hands. All different hands, young and old, dark and light, scarred and smooth, hands that cooked, that healed, that helped, that built. It's perfect, Rosa said, standing beside her mother. Mama, look what you built. What we built, Maria corrected. I couldn't have done this alone. The crowd started arriving around 10:30. Maria was shocked by how many people came. Former customers from the diner, people from the community center, members of the church, people from the reservation, local business owners, city officials, the press. Over 100 people crammed into the small space, spilling out onto the sidewalk. Linda nudged Maria. You did this. Look at what you created. Look at how many people care. Maria felt overwhelmed. She'd expected maybe 30 people. This was incredible. All these people showing up because they believed in what she was trying to do, because they wanted to be part of something good. At 11, the ceremony began. Father Miguel from Sacred Heart Church spoke first. He talked about Jesus feeding the multitudes, about how sharing food was one of the most sacred acts humans could perform, about Maria's courage and faith through her darkest time. He blessed the space with holy water, walking through the kitchen and dining area, asking God to make this a place of healing and hope. Then Joseph stepped forward. He was wearing traditional ceremonial clothing, beaded leather, feathers. He looked ancient and powerful. The crowd quieted as he began to speak, first in Lakota, then in English. In my tradition, Joseph said, we believe that everything is connected. When one person suffers, we all suffer. When one person heals, we all heal. Maria's story is not just her story. It's our story. She was broken and we helped put her back together. Now she's using her healing to help others. That's how it's supposed to work. That's the circle of life. He lit sage and moved through the space with the smoke chanting in his language. Even people who didn't understand the words seemed to feel the power of it. The sacredness. When he finished, he placed his hand on Maria's shoulder and smiled. You've done good work here. Your grandmother would be proud. Maria had asked Joseph to teach her a few words in Lakota for this moment. She spoke them now, her pronunciation careful. Mitakuye oyasin. All my relations. We are all connected. We are all family. Then it was Maria's turn to speak. She'd written a speech but left it at home. This moment required words from the heart, not from paper. 2 years ago, she began, her voice shaky at first. I was broken. Not just my hand, all of me. I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never cook again, never feel safe again, never be whole again. She paused, looking around at all the faces, friends, strangers, people who'd helped. People she hoped to help. I was wrong. I'm here today because of all of you. Because of doctors who fixed my bones. Because of a healer who fixed my spirit. She looked at Joseph. Because of a daughter who refused to let me give up. She looked at Rosa. Because of a community that showed me that I wasn't alone. Her voice grew stronger. Healing Hands isn't just about food. It's about what food represents: care, connection, community. When we cook for someone, we're saying, I see you. You matter. You deserve nourishment. When we teach someone to cook, we're giving them power, skills, confidence, the ability to care for themselves and others. Maria held up her right hand. The scars were visible. Everyone could see them. This hand was broken. It's not perfect anymore. It never will be. But it works. It can chop vegetables. It can stir pots. It can create food. It can help people. And that's enough. Sometimes being enough is all we need. She explained how Healing Hands would work. Free meals for anyone who needed them. Served with dignity and respect. No questions asked. No proof of need required. Just come hungry, leave fed. Cooking classes focused on building skills and confidence. Special programs for trauma survivors. A community space where people could gather and connect. We're starting small, Maria said. But we're starting. And I promise you this. Every meal we serve here will be made with love. Every person who walks through that door will be treated with respect. Every hand that's broken, literally or metaphorically, will find support here. Because that's what we do. We help each other. We heal together. The crowd erupted in applause. People were crying. Maria was crying. Rosa was crying. Even Joseph, dignified Joseph, had tears in his eyes. After the speeches, they served the first meal. The menu was simple but meaningful. Dishes from Maria's heritage. Dishes she'd learned from Joseph's tradition. Dishes that represented the blending of cultures and healing practices that had saved her life. Everyone ate together. City officials sitting next to homeless individuals. Business owners next to reservation elders. Everyone equal in this space. Tommy, the homeless man Maria used to feed behind the diner, was there. He'd heard about the opening and came. When Maria saw him, she made sure to serve him personally. "You always get first plate here," she told him. Always. Throughout the afternoon, people signed up for classes, volunteered to help, donated money, shared their own stories of struggle and recovery. The space was filled with hope and possibility, with the belief that good things could come from bad experiences, that broken things could be made beautiful. As the day wound down, Maria found a quiet moment to stand in her kitchen. Her new kitchen, the one she'd built from her pain. She ran her hand along the counter, feeling the smooth surface. This was real. This was hers. This was her purpose. Rosa came up beside her. "How do you feel, Mama?" Maria thought about that question. How did she feel? Complete, she said finally. Like everything I went through was leading to this moment. Not that I'm glad it happened. I wouldn't wish what I experienced on anyone. But if it had to happen, I'm glad something good came from it. Joseph joined them, his ceremony complete. "The circle is closed," he said, "but also open, because this is just the beginning. You'll help so many people here, and some of them will go on to help others. And on and on. That's how healing works. It spreads. It multiplies." That evening, after everyone left, after the cleanup was done, the three of them sat together in the dining area. Tired but satisfied. Maria looked at the photographs on the wall. The journey made visible. The transformation documented. "I want to add something to those pictures," she said. "Not just the hard parts. But this, today, people coming together. The community supporting each other. The circle completing." Rosa took out her phone and snapped a picture. Maria, Joseph, and herself sitting at a table in healing hands. 3 people brought together by trauma and healing. 3 people who'd helped each other become better than they were before. "Perfect," Rosa said, looking at the photo. "This one shows what it's all about." Maria went home that night exhausted but peaceful. She looked at her hand before going to sleep. The scars that would never fade. The fingers that would never quite straighten completely. The strength that was different than before but maybe more meaningful because of what it had cost to regain. "Thank you," she whispered to her hand, to her body that had healed, to her spirit that had persevered. "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for being strong enough." She thought about the men who'd attacked her. For the first time in 2 years, she felt something other than fear and anger toward them. Not forgiveness exactly. She wasn't there yet. Maybe she'd never be. But something close to understanding. They were broken too, desperate, lost. They'd hurt her, and that wasn't okay. It would never be okay. But holding on to hatred was only hurting herself now. "I release you," she whispered into the darkness. "You don't control my life anymore. You don't get to live in my head. I'm taking my power back." It felt like the final piece of healing. Not forgetting. Not excusing. But letting go of the weight she'd been carrying.